Well, hello there. This is Shane from Shane's Reviews, and I hope you are having a great day today. Today we're going to be talking about Shadow Puppets, which was wrote by Orson Scott Card, of course, and it was narrated by David Barham and Stefan Rudnick. Quick note about the narrations in the book. It is, of course, stellar. The two of them, they play well off of each other. As far as the production goes, I know that some people had a problem with the music that was put in there from section to section in some of the books. So I just wanted to address that real quick. That might have been a production choice that was made because they wanted to show a separation. And how do you do that audibly? Well, you can either put a awkward pause in it, or maybe you could use a musical type of a device. And I think that's the reason why they did that, was so that you could kind of reset between the sections. So my question to you guys and gals, is that something that bothers you, or is it a good device? I'm curious, and I really would like to know. Please tell me down there in those comments. Speaking of comments, let's mix it up a little bit. These are the most interesting things that we found this week. Thank you for those comments. Speaking of which, I've got some catching up to do. Sorry. It's a lot of hats. I wear a lot of hats, and sometimes I just get a little behind, but I do my best to always make sure, even if it's weeks afterwards, to go back and respond. Was this book worth your time, efforts, and energies? Depends. Now, this story is important for the Shadow arc overall. There are many things that happen in this one that has to do with being Antonsky, Petra, the two of them in the possible future, and also a particularly evil scientist, that are playing out. So that's one part of the story set. There's, of course, Peter's story too, that's got more to do with him struggling to become hegemon, and the things that are happening around him, his mother, a shill, his father. Graf is just vaguely in this book, more of a reference, if you will, and how these two stories come together. So, with that being said, in the previous review, I mentioned something about it was good to see Peter get that attaboy that he had never had before, just to see if there was an emotional depth or emotional growth on his part, and to see what would be happening with that. Now, along the story, towards the end of the Ender story arc, Peter's reborn. He's kind of a different character, but in this one, on the Shadow series, he's more true to himself, and I really don't care for the dude. Granted, everybody has problems when they're a teenager, right? I mean, just part of it. Some of the stuff, I mean, the amount of doubt, and I'm just not good enough, but, I'm a super genius, I can do anything that I want. Those two really don't mix in well with each other, because if you're that intelligent, even if you're not sure, more than likely you have your own moralities inside of you that are guiding you to the purpose of what you're trying to achieve. And if that is the case, if you've got that and you're that smart, because people that are that smart usually are not very doubting in themselves. Anyway, it's the weak point of the series is what I'm getting at, and it's all around Peter is the reason why it's the weak point. Now, granted, the story does wrap up in a way. I'm glad whenever we get out of the Shadow series, because yeah, it is what it is. It just aggravates me, because if Peter was the individual that I have in my mind, he would be much of an unstoppable force. It would be something that he decided, okay, I'm going to help the world. Sure, I was a crap kid, but now it's time for me to grow. It's time for me to move on from that. So all the crap he used to do would be crap he used to do. He wouldn't still have those same tendencies, because he would be intelligent enough to realize that these things are bad. Okay, let's move on. You can still see those tendencies in him. You can see in the way that he treats his mother and the way that he treats his father. Oh boy. He doesn't have the capabilities mentally to realize that his intelligence is more than likely due to genetics and not just a freak happenings. And he's not smart enough to realize that his parents might actually be intelligent as well. I mean, come on. So, let's talk about the other characters. A shill. A shill has been a bane for Bean's bane. A shill. Or Achilles, or however you want to pronounce it. He's the one that had a bad leg whenever Bean was in the very first book. So in Ender's Shadow, he's got this little quirk where if you see him in a moment of weakness or cause him embarrassment, he's going to kill you. Okay, that being said, let's move forward a little bit. The ending in this book, it does wrap up to a point to move on to the next section of the story. Okay, so we've established that. However, I've got a big issue whenever authors don't stay true to characters. I'm not saying that's what happened, but what I am saying is that it came very close to that. If that had happened, I would have never read another of these books. So a shill, he's got that thing where, like I said, you see me a weakness in any sort, I'm going to kill you. I will remove you. And it goes beyond an eye for an eye, well beyond. But Bean gets to a point where he's trying to retrieve something from a shill. He knows that if he goes in a particular way, or any way really with a plan, it's going to fail, so he decides to go on the fly with it. The main problem that I had is that there was a device that was used whenever a shill was rescued from the Chinese, quote unquote. This is kind of like Bean's right-hand man. He was the one that was in the Thai military, and they worked together. They were really good comrades, yes. They had this working relationship with each other, but they also, once that was over with, had to regain each other's respect, not because of any slights, but just because they wanted to make sure they were playing on the same team. And so whenever we get to the end of the book, this device that was used already before comes back around. I didn't really like that at all, because there was more clever ways of going about it. On the same token, I understand what was done there with this character and with Bean and with a shill, because it was kind of a nod to a shill of, you didn't see that coming, did you? And it gave the out that Bean needed. And I felt like that was maybe a little too easy, because Ashila has been an incredibly formidable opponent for a lot of people. Not only is he a diplomacy nightmare in that he can blend in everywhere that he goes, and not only can he fluff egos and make people feel like they are the most important thing and I'm going to make your goals happen, and oh, come to find out I'm just using you as a pawn. He's one of those sorts where he's very much a user. He doesn't care about the destruction he leaves in his path. But in this scene, all of a sudden he seems like he has a bit of a conscience. He actually cares about these things that are being destroyed, and on the other side of that, Bean has had an absolute flip of character. So that was my main problem with this book. Beyond Peter. We'll just leave him over there. No, Peter, get the hell. No, get out. Thank you. But is it important to the story arc? Yes, it is. Now there's a third story that's within this, and I'm going to kind of leave this one for you to discover and for you to let me know what you think about it, because that was the only reason why I've been able to listen to this story again, because I knew what was coming in this one. Like I said, I've gone through all these before in the past, and they're really good. That's the reason why I want to go over them. As far as being true to characters and the rhythm of speech, Scott Card's really good with that. And as far as like the details not getting lost in the mix, considering it is a big series, they do incredibly well with it. So I'm not down talking the series at all. And this book is, like I said, it's very important. But I mean, if you move on to the next one without reading this one, is this one still important? Probably not. That's why I said that at the beginning of the video. So to answer the question that I've been rambling on about, is this book worth your time, efforts, and energies? If you want a delightful surprise whenever it comes to Antoine's Key, and to find out some gushy type things in between Petra and Bean, then this book has that for you in there. However, if you just want to continue the story, this one was kind of skippable in that way, I would say. Now, what about some of the feelings that this book brought out of me? Well, it's hard for me to get emotionally invested in a story whenever there's a character that's being wishy-washy. Very technical term, wishy-washy. But essentially, I didn't really get emotionally invested in this, with the exception of Petra's part of the story and Antoine's part of the story, because there's this long diatribe where the story kind of floats over to that for a while, and that's actually the primary mover of this book, is that story, not the other two that I've been talking about. And well, at least to me. And you know what? If you think the other ones are, let me know. I'd like to hear why. You know, just down there. We'll chat about it. But it was in that story that I found a little bit more depth from Petra. And I mean, Petra's not really utilized in this the way that I felt like she could have been. She's a very strong character. She's a strong female character for sure, and I really felt like she could have been more. Mainly, well, you'll see. If I get into that, I'm going to just give it away, and I don't want to do that. But yes, that was the part that made it worth it for me. Was that was my payout in this book, was Petra and Bean, their dilemma and what's going on with them, and their relationship, if it's going to continue or not continue, if Bean's going to give her what she wants or not. That was the thing that actually kept me going. And then the parts with Antoine in it, whenever he's having particular conversations with people in the book, that was actually really well done. So for me, it makes the rest of what I was just fussing about forgivable, because it did have that payout in that part of the story. So the statistics say that so many people that have seen these videos are not subscribed. So I'm going to start asking, please subscribe if you're not, because it will help us grow. And I very, very much appreciate those of you that have been with me for quite some time. Thank you. You know who you are. Beyond that, not sure which one of these videos that just kind of came in from the side there you would end up watching if you decided to continue down the path that is known as my ramblings about books. But whichever one you choose, thank you if you do, and I will see you in the next video.